This stream is cleared for takeoff. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this Wednesday, the last Wednesday of September. We're finally really happy to have another Q&A. We know we missed the last couple months due to lots of complications, but we're really itching to get back here to answer a lot of your questions and talk about the sim. It's great to see lots of familiar faces. Looks like they're excited to see our the three developers here. I'm Jayne, the Senior Community Manager at Microsoft Flight Simulator. And below me, I have three guests you probably recognize if you've been here before. I will let them introduce themselves, starting with Jorg.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be back. It's been too long. I'm the head of Flight Sim.
Thanks, Jorg. And next to Jorg, we have Seb.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning. I'm Sebastian Wloch, C.E.O. co-founder at Asobo Studio.
Thanks, Seb. And last but not least, we have Martial.
Lovely, thank you. Hi, everybody. Very pleased to be back. And I'm Martial. I'm the executive producer of Flight Sim.
Thank you. So today's stream, we have a specific agenda. And if you're curious what that agenda is, you can type in !agenda for a list of items we'll be discussing. Most importantly, this stream will be about up to 2 hours long, depending on how many questions we get, but that section will be at the end, the last hour or hour and 15. So I'm sure you have lots of questions to ask. We do ask that you save it for that portion while we go through everything else first. But with that said, we're really excited to jump in with, of course, the first section being Sim Update 6. But before we get to that, Jorg, I know you had a couple things you wanted to say.
Yeah, I just want to say hi, everyone. I'm sorry that we missed the last one. It's actually entirely my fault. There's a long story there. But so I hope everybody had some fun with the Junkers yesterday. I think Oliver Moser and Asobo did a really great job with the plane. I spent some time in the forums yesterday, and it was awesome to read your feedback and people experimenting with the plane and having fun. Mm-hmm. So I think the Local Legends series is off to a good start. And but as always, there are some issues. We saw some of them already, and we will keep looking, and we will release updates as appropriate. Then just because it's September, it's been actually looking back a little. It's been 2 months since we launched on Xbox, and I think this might be the first dev Q&A. And I just wanted to say something, which was, I wanted to say thank you to all of you, because looking at what's happened, there are literally millions of people that just joined flight simulation for the first time ever in their lives. And from the feedback we get on, certainly from the Xbox crowd, they felt very welcome. And that is because of you guys, because you were helpful and friendly and inviting, and that was great to see. And so thank you very much. And actually, August was another record that we set for a number of users on Flight Sim, which was great. And last week, it was also really nice to see that there's 3 new peripherals coming out from Honeycomb and from Thrustmasters and from Turtle Beach. Mm-hmm. But so having all said that, so our third payware plane is out, the Junkers, the Xbox is out. We talked about Reno, and we're not going to talk about Reno today. Today is really, really focused on what I think you really care about, the core sim. And we'll start with Seb. He's going to give a presentation with quite a few videos going into some details. Then Matt from Working Title is joining us and speaking to what they've been doing and also a little bit about their roadmap. And then in the end, as Jayne already said, we'll spend a bunch of time in Q&A and really answer your questions. So, but today, core sim. All right, let's have fun. Seb.
Yeah, so I think today we have 12 videos which are showing just a subset of improvements for Sim Update 6. There is actually going to be hundreds of improvements, as with any Sim update, but focus on some of the more important ones that have been more discussed. Maybe sometimes they were in the feedback snapshots, and so a little bit of focus there. So the first video, it's about trees again. So we changed and improved the tree system again with Sim Update 6. It's been the tree system has been moved and changed around for maybe 8 months now. It started at a PC launch where trees were on, basically we have in the terrain, we have 20 to 21 LODs, depending on when you are. and the trees were on LOD 15 and 13. The problem we had is that LOD 13 goes way too far, and it was just so expensive in memory and performance and CPU. Our goal is always to get the best visual over performance trade-off, right? To make the best out of what we use on the PC. And so around Christmas, we moved the trees and said, okay, we're gonna use them only on LOD 15 because the view range is big enough, extending LOD 15 a little bit. The issue is that it was not enough in some areas of the world. We pushed it further with the next sim update, was still not enough. And for the Xbox release, we said, okay, well, let's put them back onto the LOD 13, but let's pull in that LOD because it goes so far and it's way too far for trees and it's just too heavy. That worked well, but then it pulled in LOD 13, which is actually our last LOD carrying for the primary tree. So some of the buildings were not displaying as far anymore. And this is really just some places in the world. I think it happens in New York, depends on where you are. Some users reported this. So we moved the trees to LOD 14. It was you couldn't do that before because you need to have the data on the right, like when people stream down the data, it needs to be on the right data set. And so it took some time to just move that to the right LOD, which is 14. That was I think that was World Update 6. And then now what we did is we pushed LOD out 14 further out with some of that 6. So for some areas in the world, it was still not ranging enough. LOD 14, we have a lot more range for what we can do with it. So we were able to push out trees with SimAbit 6 without sacrificing performance memory. So yeah, it has almost no impact at all, not measurable. And you can see here the video, trees out to, as far as you can see. I'll go back later on this at the end of the 12 videos because there's another new feature coming, which is great and which also helps on tree distance. But this updated again, pushed out further and should be better on all different, whatever the setting. So I think there's 3 videos now just going back on flight model improvements that we continue to improve. So we have done a lot of changes to get better adversarial. We're doing more and more real-world airplane tests. This is here just showing the adversarial is now fully controllable by people who create planes. It's basically, you can say how much drag you want on the ailerons, exactly up, down. You have a lot more control. And this is one of the main factor of adversarial, right? Is how much drag you generate when you push down the aileron on one side. And as you can see here, I'm not doing any rudder, but you see the tail going left and right. I'm just oscillating, trying to find the right frequency and you see how the nose just goes left, right. So all the planes have that, and we are going over planes again. So 7, I think, have been updated in SimAbit 6 with just fine-tune this, and we're starting a process of actually going in back on all the planes we have, recording them live, basically live data, comparing that to the planes in the sim, and just fine-tuning these settings so that it's even more accurate. Another thing that is available and improved on SimAbit 6 is plane makers have more control on how much they move the lift surface back or forward. Basically not the surface, but where the lift is applied. You can see here, I put out the flaps and the lift goes back. In the old Flight Simulator X version, it was called CM, like it's basically pitch moment up or down, which was really caused by the lift going forward and backward. And that plane makers have now control flap level by flap level by flap level in detail. So you get a pitch up because you get more lift, but you can compensate with a pitch down because you can move the lift forward or backward. Same thing for lift control, forward or backward. You can now, plane makers can control this on each plane with the AOA. They can say, if I'm flying flat, how much can I move forward or backward the lift forces? If I have a high angle of attack, so here I'm flying slower and slower, the angle of attack goes up, 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 and you see the lift forces going slowly forward. And when you stall, you can say, I want them to move more or less backwards. This used to be all constant for every plane, and now plane makers can just fine tune this. So you see I'm going slower, slow, and I'm starting to slow in the middle, and you will see the forces going backwards. right now. And then, yeah, one wing just drops. So full control over this in the plane creation files. And this is just, I mean, there's been other improvements. We'll go over this later. There's been a lot of, yeah, maybe we can break a little bit, Martial.
Yeah. Well, you're doing that so well. So maybe if you want to continue, yeah, we've been asked, and we had a lot of questions about some of the effects, like the ground effect, the drag, and some aerodynamic centers. So in order to help people to understand how it's working, and we did the computation of that, we did 3 new panels for debugging information, and it explains all the different setups we've got and all the calculation we're doing for each of these computations. So here the first example is the ground effect. So it is a full debug screen with every single details on how the ground effect is working. So just I can see barely things on my feedbacks, but what you may see, maybe because I can't, is that the ground effect is happening at a certain height. This height is basically the span of the wings, and we are doing some computation here to give a percentage of the effect of the ground effects on the plane, and this percentage is then reintroduced. Can you help me, Seb, because I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. And so I think the screen is really helping people to understand the complexity, because one thing is that, I mean, one detail is that ground effect is really per surface. And so it may be higher here. The plane, you know, has V-shape wings. And so the middle of the plane is closer to the ground than the side of the wings. You can see that in the screen, right? You see the distance to ground, how much ground effect it makes. And on this, I'm flying very fast. You can see that the ground effect is actually very small. It's only 1% on overall drag. It's at the bottom. It's 20%, 15% right now on lift. And so the ground effect can be tuned by aircraft, right? There is data in the file. It can be made more or less strong. And there's been a lot of discussions. Is it too strong? With this screen, people who are not happy about ground effect, they can look into it and see what is wrong. We have fixed the one plane that had an issue. It's the King Air. And it wasn't the ground effect issue. You can see that at the top here. You also see the drag and thrust. Actually, the King Air was well over thrusted in idle. And so when you land, well, you idle. And so that felt like there was too much ground effect, but actually it was too much idle thrust. But maybe on some other planes, or when a plane maker makes his own plane, he will think that there's too much ground effect at some point. And this screen really helps debug.
Yeah, so same here. So if you've got any feedbacks on how we do the computation of the drag or the ground effect, and if you please give us some feedback, they are more than welcomed. So here, same here, I've got basically no video on my screen. So it's explain how the drag is working. So the good thing of this screen is that you can see every single step for the computation of the drag has been put. So everybody will be able to understand how it's working. Oh, I can say a thing.
Yeah, it's very small. Yeah.
Not
yeah, so there was a lot of discussions. Yeah, our support also talked to people who were trying to understand drag. And it's not very easy, because there's the FSX was the theoretical drag formula.
Thank you.
Okay, it was just the drag. So it's very easy, right? It's what is the formula? Well, that's the drag. Here, there's the theory. That's what you enter in the file. But then what is actually happening on the plane in real world? And so we have a flight, a tunnel, right? A wind tunnel. And then we have the actual plane in air. And so everything is here. You can see how the drag is built together, what formulas are applied, what parameters the plane maker set in the file. And so why it's doing something. So for example, there's coefficients, scalars, you can put, it's everything here. The formulas are actually appearing. And on this plane, it's pretty easy because I'm flying fast and there's no prop wash. And some planes have prop wash. You will see that some surfaces are going faster, some are other. And this sort of mixes up the drag formula, because, well, when there is a plane flying at 100 knots, but the propeller is washing air at 150 knots, how do you calculate the formula? So here it does all the different calculations. And you get all the different CDs, whatever the base speed you take, and it's very easy to understand. So we didn't find any problem with the simulation. With this, I mean, it helps us too, right, to see and recheck everything. We didn't find any problem. So it's going to help plane makers author the planes. And if someone finds a problem with his plane, then it's much easier for him to communicate, hey, this is wrong on my plane, what's going on? Because now we have the data.
Okay, so another debug screen, which is about the aerodynamic center and the computation of the weight. Jayne, can you zoom in? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to zoom because only 6 lines are new here. Current at the top, current something. Yeah.
So
and here,
yeah. Sorry, continue, please.
Yeah, so you get basically, there was a long discussion with plane makers thinking that we were using just the flat airfoil theory with a lift or aerodynamic center always at 25% Mach. I mean, that's not really the case because that's a theoretical simplification of airplanes. We just have surfaces in the world and we throw air at them. So we can't say, hey, the aerodynamic center is here. It's where it is, right? And so these new 6 lines, they actually measure the pressure center, the aerodynamic center, and the lift center per the definition, which is whatever, Wikipedia or university, you can find it. So, and we measure it only on the wing and then on the full plane. So that plane makers can say, oh, where is my aerodynamic center? So the aerodynamic center definition being the change in CM, you need to actually pitch up and down to see it. Otherwise, it's just random crap. But the pressure center and lift center are pretty stable and also computed by the official definition. And you can see where they are, right? So on this plane, on the wing, pressure center, yeah, 25%. Not really, 24.7, you see, and it's moving around when I change the surfaces. If you consider the entire plane, because, well, the fuselage also contributes, the tail contributes, the wheel contributes, then it's not even at 25 anymore. Then it moves to 20 or somewhere else. This is, we don't have any, I mean, the sim doesn't have really control over this. This is the plane file. If the wing is here, if the tail is here, it's fully dependent on how you create the plane. And this is going to give this. But now, plane maker, if he wants his aerodynamic center to be somewhere, at least he has help and can move the surfaces around to get the data he wants. Same thing again, this helped us make sure we don't have a bug. We didn't find any problem, but if someone has a problem with this plane, with the screen, he can say, hey, look, I should have this value, I get this value, what's wrong? It's just another screen to help people.
Oh, so yes. So some people have asked why we are doing Reno and what is the use of that. Well, I would say that it's super important for us to use the flight sim in different use cases. And for Reno, we've got some new use cases, and especially we worked on the streaming and on the rendering of the bushes here when you're flying super fast, very close to the ground. So this is one improvement that has been brought because of Reno. And so it's always interesting to test the simulation in different environments. So here you can see exactly the work that has been done for improving the rendering on all the bushes that comes with the tree. Jorg? You wanted to add something?
Nope.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can add. So it's just this is the fastest we've ever gotten so close to the ground. And you can see also the ground effect debug screen helped us too in this case, right? Make sure it works well because you fly so close to the ground in these races. And yeah, and we have to build thousands and thousands of bushes and trees every frame because you're just going so fast. And so we had to optimize this further, which means that if you're flying with another plane, well, you still get less load on your CPU, right? CPU and GPU. And so it means better optimization overall.
So yeah, so on this video, you can see one of the other improvements we did because of Reno. On Reno, you can fly the spits, you can see there. And we're struggling by the past to have like a very sharp movement for aerobatic planes. And because of Reno, because of these planes, we found the reason why, and we improve it was basically the way that the sim was creating a limitation for the acceleration of the rotation. And so thanks to this plane in Reno, we found the bug, and now, as you can see, the rotation are very sharp, and you can do the kind of movement that aerobatics are doing.
Yeah, and I would actually thank some of the plane makers who brought up this
that's
issue.
right.
Yeah, very specifically. And actually, I didn't even remember this, because I read this line of code, which comes from FlightSimX and which limits acceleration rotation. I think I read this maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't even remember it was there. And it's in a place where, I mean, it's a different part of the code. It's at the very end. It's totally unrelated to the flight model. And it just, I think for safety and make sure stuff doesn't explode, it just limits all data. And rotation acceleration was limited to 400 or 500 degrees per second squared, which is, well, it's cool for most planes, but not for aerobatics. And that's why we could never get, so I mean, like aerobatic planes, you see when they do these super sharp, like quarter turns or stuff, quarter roll, we could never get this. And so we we measured how high it would go. The fastest accelerating plane we had was 2000-ish, 2500 degrees per second squared. So we set the limit to 2800, no explosion, no, I mean, it's stable enough. It doesn't, whatever, create any other problems. But now you can see you can do super sharp rolls. That's really only for the pits, for the extra. I don't think any other plane is going to have any change because of that. But for these planes, it's, yeah.
They're about
Captain too, yeah.
Oh, Captain, yeah, Captain. But you're going to feel it less. It was in the thousands. So you're going to still get an improvement, but it was not going as much.
Okay. And well, finally, one of the last improvements we did because of Reno and thanks to the Reno experience we had, these are wake turbulences. So as you can, it's still a work in progress, right? And so you can see that by flying just after the first jet, I don't see a damn thing on my screen. Sorry, the compression is terrible. So I think that I can remember there's a jet just in front of the one you're flying, and you can feel the wake turbulences. So that's super important for Reno races, obviously, but it will be still the case.
So just a note: it's not a complete simulation of wake turbulence. It's a first step. So it really only works when you're flying behind on small planes. It's not gonna do like if you have a giant like a 747 taking off and there's gonna be vortices surviving for 2 minutes on the runway. That's not yet there. We plan to have that first semester in 2022 around that time. This is really just a local. You need to have a plane to actually get it. And we need to tune it and make it work well for also the race condition, because you get that all the time in Reno races. You're always sort of following someone. So it was extremely important. And Reno pilot feedback was that, yeah, this is a key element of the race. So we're tuning that in that context. And it's going to take another improvement. I mean, it's a totally other beast to have, wake turbulence survive in the world for a long time. But that's planned. It's going to be early next year or mid next year.
That's super important for Seb because he never gets first.
And yes, so this is any plane you're following. So whether it's multiplayer, whether it's AI, anything, if it's airborne, if it's generating lift, it's generating induced drag, you're going to have wake turbulences behind it.
I think we can now switch to night lights.
And so, so some very great improvements, which I think have been required and asked for a long time. So we did another big pass of improving night lighting. So this is shot over New York from 12,000 meters. So that's whatever, 35 to 40,000 feet. So that's really high airliner flight altitude for something like maybe 747 longitude. And you can see the improved night lighting. It stretches out to whatever, as far as you can see. So we increased the render distance of the lights. We pushed this satellite sepia rendering, which was really only made for extreme distances. We pushed that out way further, and we're drawing more lights more efficiently. It has been optimized, and it looks a lot better than, I mean, from that altitude, 1 year ago, you would get all yellow filtered aerial map, right? It wouldn't be any lights. And now there's millions of lights rendered. So big improvement on night lighting, especially from high altitudes. So with SimUpdate 6 and the next video. So there's a new great feature which has been asked for, which is coming with SimUpdate 6. You will get the slider for terrain detail will not be limited at 200 anymore. It's going to be, you'll be able to, so Ultra is still going to be 200, but you will be able to push it to 400. And so this is what you see on Ultra 4K, 12 kilometers over San Francisco with the terrain detail to 400. So there is more polygons than pixels in 4K now. And I don't know, the photogrammetry range is all the way back into the mountains over there. And this increase of terrain data, so it's really going above Ultra now. So Ultra is 200, you can go up to 400 now. And this applies to terrain, photogrammetry, trees, lights, everything is going to benefit from this slider increasement.
10 cities.
Yeah, photogrammetry, anything.
Oh,
like anything we draw is having this increased detail. And so it does not only mean we're drawing detail further, it also means that detail is higher when you get close up, because basically we have 21 LODs. Every LOD is drawing farther. So if you have a photogrammetry from close up, it's going to be looking better for a longer range. And so performance impact, there is some, but it was not huge, thanks to all the optimizations we've been doing over 6 months. It costs a little bit in memory and performance, but not so much. We would not have been able to do this 6 months ago, because this would have just crushed the memory, maybe cost 10 gigs more, and performance. Now it's really, I would say, totally acceptable impact if you're looking for visual quality.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Seb and Martial, for the videos and the exclamations. We really appreciate you putting these together. Really cool news, especially for the LOD and night lighting.
Yep.
Yeah,
and all that is coming in SimUpdate 6 on 10/19, so 3 weeks.
Yes, very soon. I did see one question, I think it was partially answered back about Reno and the wake turbulence from Peter. Peter asked, will wake turbulence work on multiplayer, and if so, can we turn it on and off?
Good question.
Good question.
For the moment, no, but it's an option we can plan for Reno.
Okay, so that's good feedback, Peter.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, appreciate it. And all right, if we're ready to move on, we do have Matt on the call from Working Title, who's going to give us an update on the NXI. I'll go ahead and switch over if you're ready, Matt.
Ready.
All right, hello. Glad to have you, Matt. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Matt from Working Title, one of the lead developers, architects.
Fantastic. So what is next for the NXI? What kind of updates can you provide for the community today?
Well, so we know that the community has been asking for, one of the biggest things on the feedback snapshot, of course, is, G1000, G3000, autopilot, all that kind of stuff. And that was really one of the biggest reasons that we were brought on. So we know you've been asking for, want to be able to fly all the cool RNAV approaches, want to be able to do all the different kind of leg types that there are, all the IFR stuff that everybody is asking for. And that's the kind of stuff that we've been working on with the NXI. So, we know it's super important to everybody. We know that that people really want to be able to fly their IFR procedures and practice that stuff in the sim and do it in the ways that it works in the real avionics. So we've been working really hard on that with the NXI for the past about 4 and 5 months. That's kind of our way of delivering on, those autopilot issues and those different nav issues. So that's in the marketplace today. And we're going to continue working on the NXI, of course. And then as far as the NXI itself, I'll just go into a little bit about what we have on the NXI right now. So in the NXI, we've done a ton of work on the flight planning system. That's really one of the core pieces that we wanted to tackle first. It's something that we did in the CJ4 as well. And so the flight plan system in the NXI is kind of a predecessor to what we would like to deliver in the sim. In the NXI, you can do all the RNAV approaches are possible. All the different leg types are possible. It has fully coupled VNAV. It's got LPV simulation. All the different modes that you would see on the autopilot, those all work properly. They fail at the correct times. They engage at the correct times. All the arming and all that kind of stuff works. So we're really happy about that. You can get it in the marketplace now. And one thing that we want to say about that is we know that there are a couple things that it doesn't have from the stock G1000, but during the Sim Update 6 timeframe, not necessarily right when Sim Update 6 lands, but during that time frame, we expect it to be kind of having parity with the stock G1000. So it will remain on the marketplace for a while until we kind of are able to bring the flight plan system into the Sim, which I'll talk about just in a second here. But it will be definitely able to replace the stock G1000, and you should be able to use that just fine with in most applications. Some other stuff that we'd like to talk about real quick. So there have been a lot of questions about what is working title doing, in the future, right? So we have some interesting things planned. Some of them will be obvious to folks who are following us. Some of them will be somewhat surprises. But just would like to talk a little bit about what we're going to do next. So the very next thing that you'll see coming out of us is bringing the NXI work with the flight plan and all that kind of stuff into the CJ4. That's our very next thing. So we know people have been asking for some updates to the CJ4, and you're going to see them before the end of the year. The other thing that we'll be getting to is the G3000. We'll be starting that also before the end of the year. The GNS 43530, we'd like to refresh those. Don't have an exact time frame on that yet, but they'll have the same operational IFR accuracy as we have in the NXI, and that we're bringing in the CJ4 and the G3000. And then we're going to do the G3X also. So we should have kind of the full suite of Garmin units plus the CJ4. We'll all be kind of getting brought up to the standards that simmers are expecting to kind of practice their IFR stuff. And we have a couple of other interesting pieces. So I mentioned we want to redo the flight plan system. That's something we plan on tackling next year. It's a pretty big project. The flight plan system is pretty integrated into the sim, but we want to take the accuracy that we have in the NXI now, and we want to bring that to the stock flight plan system, so that not only is it good for all the existing avionics, but it's good for all other developers that want to use the flight plan system and want to build their own avionics on top of that. So that will be coming sometime next year. And then in some other fun little surprises, Working Title will also be working on some of the premium plane stuff. We know, and we have heard, we take the feedback seriously. It's stuff that we really want to get more correct. So, with the G3000, and the other avionics upgrades, a lot of those planes will be sort of coming up to par just as a result of the avionics upgrades. But there's a couple of other little systems items that we want to tackle too. And then we'll actually be having a special focus on the 787 and 747, which we know it's not in the state that we would like it to be, and we want to get it better for everybody. And then lastly, we do plan on Working Title is also going to tackle a little bit of ATC work next year. We want to integrate it into the new flight plan system, have it be able to integrate with all the different leg types and vectors and those kinds of things that the new flight plan system will be able to do. Again, that's a pretty big project. We don't have exact timelines on any of that stuff, but we will be starting to take a look next year and try and bring that again to the level that I think people are a little bit more expecting. So yeah, that's kind of what we have laid out for now.
Thank you, Matt. Chat is extremely excited about 747, 787, as well as some of the ATC updates. So we appreciate that.
One more thing to say. So I hope you agree. The teams are kicking ass, and Working Title has been just awesome. Mm-hmm. And the team is growing. I don't know to what degree that is public, but the team has been growing steadily since we started, and we're currently hedging plans to grow them even further next year. And the Asobo has been growing too, by the way. So it's really exciting to see how much work is getting done. And I think you'll see other things. And by the way, the things that Matt just said, they are in this feedback snapshot. They come from you guys, right? We do listen. Sometimes it takes a while, but we do listen, and we're going to go do them.
Yeah.
So thanks, Matt and team. Yay.
Yes,
Thank you,
highly
thank you,
appreciate
thank you.
it, Matt. Chat, say goodbye. Matt will be leaving us now, but we appreciate all the updates, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you, Matt.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the feedback snapshot. We'll give a few updates there. I'll turn it over to you, Jorg.
Yeah, I mean, actually, so I spent a bunch of time in the forums this week, and it was good. And there was one thing that popped. Some people said, "Hey, this feedback snapshot hasn't really changed. It's been the same stuff for a year." And I was like, "Really?" No, so I don't think so, because a ton of stuff got done. So I don't know if Jayne, if you got my mail with the thing.
Yes, I did.
So this is
Here
what
is.
this is kind of what it was. And at that point in time, this is the first one we did about a year ago. There were all kinds of other things that people really wanted. There was a lot of performance things, pitch and yaw, peripheral support, and a whole host of things. And when we looked at it, I think we worked. 5 of them are gone. So when we on the feedback snapshot, we just take out when it's done. We remove it and basically let other stuff come to the top. So it's good to see. So it's interesting. The wish list is actually quite similar, and we're quite focused on it, by the way. And so when people ask sometimes, "Hey, why are you doing this and that or the other?" It's actually oftentimes in the wish list. Like things like helicopters and gliders and things like that are all been wish listed since the very, very time we got feedback from y'all. So anyways, we'd like to just go through this a little bit and talk through each point. So the first one, implement weather and terrain API, is interesting. We looked at it a lot. It was obviously upvoted a lot. And just to sort of say what I have to say, like, and so weather, we get weather data via Media Blue, as you might know, and the terrain data we get from Bing, and think of that as big Microsoft. And some of these things have some licensing restrictions, so we just can't do anything we want to. But we have looked at this quite a bit. And Seb, if you want to tell a little bit what we think we can do versus what other things that are still kind of like in question.
You're muted, Seb.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. So yeah, as Jorg said, there's licensing issues and also technical issues. So we are completely open to discussing an API which allows plane makers to access the data that we have currently in RAM. But it's a very small limitation, right? It's not, we don't have the entire weather data for the planet in memory. We pull weather data from the servers from time to time, and only for very small regions. So what we cannot do is an API where a plane can just randomly pull data for the planet, whether that's them or weather, because A, we don't have it, and B, we cannot just pull it from servers, right? Because it's going to increase the request count crazy. Maybe it's going to crash servers, and it's also maybe going to increase the cost for basically every time you pull data, it costs money. So if some plane just pulls thousands and thousands of data points, so we need to think at an API and maybe also discuss an API, right? Maybe we're going to discuss something, propose it, discuss it with we need to converge onto something that works, but that also that's within our limits of what we can actually do. It's the same for DEM, right? We really only have the DEM around the plane, and everything else is super low res. So we have one DEM planet-wide, but it's like fairly low quality. And so yeah, open to open some of the stuff, and the licensing issue, which means that yeah, we can open it, but what we can't allow is, for example, people just pulling all the data down and whatever, sharing it, selling it, I don't know. We have limitations on what we can do with that data. So it has to stay in that plane and in the sim. And so we need to find an API which is just compliant with our technical and legal restrictions. But otherwise, obviously, totally open. But it's not that easy to find something which matches needs and our constraints.
Yeah, for what it's worth, right? I think this was the way I remember the thread was, it was started by Fly-by-Wire. We have a ton of respect for what they do. Their plan is awesome, and we want to help. So just know that when we say under investigation, we're actually really looking at it, and we have to really figure out what can and can't be done. But we are taking this very seriously. All right, the next point, Chinese localization. We just kicked this off, so that's happening. I just saw somewhere in the thread, somebody said, get helicopters done, we're sending Sergio on you. Well, he and I just talked like this week, as a matter of fact. So that's happening. I've been in quite a bit of contact with a number of teams that want to help us with helicopters. Sergio made very good points, and I listened carefully, and we will engage now with the best teams that I think are out there and work with them. And the goal is to get this done by 2022. And Seb, do you want to, I know you started, you want to hint at something here?
Yeah, so also our goal is not to, I mean, one thing I think is important is not to all of a sudden say, okay, now we're making helicopters and we're leaving planes behind, or what I want is, I mean, helicopters, it's just another flying thing. It's the same air, it's the same physics of air, how air flows. So I would love to have one benefiting the other, right? And we're having a lot of requests, complaints, bugs on propeller, whether it's prop drag, prop wash, idle, I don't know, windmilling. There's so many things because we entirely reworked the aerodynamics of the airframe for this version of Flight Simulator based on what was there before. But we kept really the simulation of the propeller as it was, right? We did a few improvements here and there, but it's the same pretty much old system. And it's not a real physics aerodynamic simulation. It's more like an approximation. And a propeller and a helicopter propeller and blades, it's very close. It's not the same thing, but there's a lot of things in common. So while we're doing physics for helicopter blades, well, why not improve the physics of propellers? And so we're trying to make this one thing. Propellers and helicopter blades are going to get the same features, and one is going to benefit the other. So we expect over the next year not only to get helicopters, but also all the improvements on all the effects that were missing on propeller blades, or maybe hard-coded or approximated, to get really propellers on planes too.
Awesome. All right, multiple screens. I saw in the thread, lots of people. Martial, this is your baby. Give an update.
Sorry, I've got like a done with here. I've been cut. So what was the question?
Oh, multiple screens functionality update. Lots of people.
Okay. Let's hope I'm not going to be cut because I've got some problems here. Okay, so multiple screens functionality will on our plate for the rendering, but we're doing some changes to bring the multiple screen functionalities and some other rendering things that will come with VR. So
He anticipated that. Oh, he's back.
Sorry. So, what did you miss? Everything?
The last sentence.
Just the last sentence.
Okay, so yeah, so everything is in the pipe. We don't know exactly what we.
I think we're going to lose him. Well, I know a little bit about it. So a team is working on it. This is committed for next year. We don't know exactly when because there's tons of stuff to do. Martial, you seem like you're back. Do you want to say?
Yes, it was exactly what I was saying. Okay. We don't know when we're going to support that, but it's in the pipeline. Everything is it's a progress.
Gotcha.
All right. The next one's also interesting. Replay functionality. We had a long debate. So there's a video team. When you watch the trailers, you know that's the video team making the trailers, and they have a tool set that they work with. And some of us, including me, think that tool set is maybe not perfect or anything, but the video team is using it to make awesome looking videos. So I think we should just publish this. And that is the current debate. Should we just publish this sort of in a dev mode? The UI isn't perfect. It's not super slick, but so what? At least you guys could do things with it. So I'm not even sure we are right this moment with this decision. Martial, do you remember where we landed? Are we putting this?
I'm sorry, I'm missing. I think I'm going to get disconnected and I'll be back maybe. But I've.
So we're talking about it for Sim Update 7. It's not 100% confirmed. If it were up to me, we'll put it into the dev mode, and you can basically turn it on. basically at your own peril, but I think it would still be cool to have at least as a first step, and we would get your feedback also.
Yeah. I see some
Yeah,
comments.
so-
Release it as a beta.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so that's the plan. The plan is to open to what.
And that's the plan.
That's the plan.
Okay, I'm
Sorry,
going to get
Marcel.
this. I'm going to. Well, I'm leaving.
Okay.
I'll be back.
We'll be back. You're
Yeah,
probably going to see Matt's screen for a while.
All right, so we're moving on. Okay, DX12, we can talk about.
Yes.
Seb, you know what's happening.
I will try the internet problem
Oh, it's with
Marcel,
Seb too? Oh my goodness.
because I have the same cuts. I don't know if you hear me.
Yeah,
Yes,
a little
I
bit.
do.
DirectX 12 is currently, the dev is finished for PC and it's in a test phase. So we need to test different machines, different hardware. Our intention is by the end of the year to make it will be able to stay onto DirectX 11.
Yeah, I think that broke off, Seb, and we're going to make it optional. Right?
We try to make it optional by the end of the year.
Yeah.
As an option, yeah. But it's the dev is done, it's in test. And so a lot of hardware compatibility lab test.
Okay. And just so you know, Matt, you're going to be on screen for a little while until Marcel comes back.
Yeah,
So
goody. So I mean, look, I know all this stuff too. Like, so the logbook book, it comes up a lot, and people say, "Hey, why is this so hard? Why is it taking so long?" So we just talked about it yesterday, and it's now committed for Sim Update 7. It's not updated here on this latest thing. I'll do it tomorrow. Scenery gateway system, that's a story. So I'm a little bit bummed because we had someone who was ready to do it. We've done the prototype. The prototype is good, and we know how to do it, know what the features need to be. We're in contact with some of you about this, and then the dev he went somewhere else. I actually don't know exactly. He was supposed to take this on as a external developer, and he's not doing it. So we're currently searching for either somebody to be hired into Asobo or somebody external. But right this moment, this is stalled at the design phase is done, and code phase unfortunately is waiting for dev. But we
you might get some emails from chat. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, please write us a mail. Next one, open up the weather system.
Yeah.
So, Seb, do you want to?
That's a little bit. It's close to the first request, right? Implement weather API. So open up is an API. I think here it's more a question about writing to the weather than reading from the weather. I think we're not against opening up, right? The cautious thing we need to make sure about is that we are also improving the weather a lot on our side, and it needs to fit well, right? We don't want it's a very complex system, so it needs to work. And you can't just randomly override clouds and then it's raining out of nowhere or stuff like this. So I think we're going to think just like the number one request. I think whether the API can read or write, if we open an API, it should do both, right? And we need to discuss what it can do both ways to open up. I would say what's going on around the plane, but it's just that the weather got a lot more complex, right? There's a voxel space around the plane. It's 10 meter, I think, boxes or something. It's simulating effect from mountains, updraft, downdraft, and waves and turbulence and all that. If someone goes in and just writes, I don't know, wind is 10 knots south, it erases all this. And is someone external be able to resimulate all this? Well, maybe not that easily. And so we need to be careful at what we do, how we open, and how it works, so that it doesn't just break stuff, but totally open to discussing this and trying to set up something so that it works.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody, did I just miss something?
Have you talked about DirectX 12?
Yes, Ted did. You were gone, my friend.
Ah.
Okay, so gliders, sailplanes, and soaring is we have identified a partner. We will bring in that partner into a stream. It might be I think in October we'll mostly talk about Reno, and David is going to join us to talk about the mode and what's all behind it. And it's really cool. So in November, I think we're gonna bring in the group that is working with us on gliders. But it's basically kicked off. Think about it that way. That's why it says started. Remove ground vehicles from subtitles Korean started. Will get done next year. Ground vehicle from taxiways. I think.
Yeah, it's also started. We are doing a rework on some of the AI is happening next to the airport.
Okay, and then let's see here. It's funny with getting cities in South Korea. I've been trying. There's some interesting rules that country has about making photogrammetry. So I'm trying to unlock this. But yeah, airport is not a problem, but the photogrammetry cities are kind of tricky in that particular part of the world. Disappointing mounting terrain. I think that's a two-step thing, right? I mean, I think when you look at what we did with the world updates, and they're not all consistent, right? Because the data really isn't out there in the world. But I think for when we did the DACH update, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland, I think we did great to get new DEM data, which is basically the height field. Same with the France update. France Benelux was really nice. So once you have 50 centimeters or meter resolution, that is pretty much as good as we need to go. I mean, frankly, most shooters don't have better, when you run on the ground. So I think this is good. And then Seb, you wanted to speak a little bit about your side.
Yeah. So basically, there's a few terrain bugs, right? There's sometimes I said you have 21 LODs. You switch from one LOD to the other, and you see the change. Sometimes the terrain is, for example, the water coast. What's going on coasts? Basically, some areas of the planet we had very low quality DEM data, and the water was just like wavy, bubbly, and it was overlapping with the coast. So what we did is we are flattening water along coastlines and everywhere basically, but sometimes the terrain doesn't match, and so the flattening eats into the terrain, and it creates these like I would say some people would call it broken coastlines. Are we going to fix this? Well, the issue is that we keep improving data, and Jorg says, right, every time he makes a wall update, our data is coming in. So at some point in the future, the planet's data is going to keep improving. And so I think it's maybe going to go the other way around. At some point, I hope we're not going to need to go in and just stamp the water flat anymore, because the data is going to be good enough from the ground up. So do we want to invest a lot of time into making this algorithm better? I don't know, because if we spend all this time to make this better and then the data gets better and we have to turn it off, it's a waste. Well, what I can say is that the increase of the terrain detail slider, well, it pushes all these problems further out. So when the terrain LOD changes, you see it, but it's smaller and further away. When a bug is somewhere, it's getting further away. And even today with the terrain at 400, the performance is still much better than a year ago at 200, right? A lot better. So basically we're globally increasing the quality and pushing these bugs out into the distance so that you don't see them anymore. But it's going to be the data that is going to do the job in the end, right? Once the data gets better worldwide, all this is going to be basically just reduced or invisible.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are asking about terrain morphing. I think that's what you're like. Look, you always go from one LOD to another, and there's going to be a morph. But what Seb just said was it'll be much less visible because we're pushing it further out. So
yeah,
look at Sim Update 6, and it should be quite improved. Okay, the next one, Martial, improve AI traffic at airports and in the air.
So we already have improved some part of that, especially regarding landing and taking off. It's still a work in progress, and it comes with the vehicle. All the AI around the airports are still work in progress. We're working on that. Just a word about what I've seen on the chat. People are complaining sometimes because we are bringing Korean translation rather than, I don't know, whatever systems. So don't worry, we're not doing ourselves the Korean translation. No. So everything here, it's not always the same people and same team. So for it's not because we're asking people to do a current translation that we won't work on the other systems. So
this is a Microsoft team.
Yeah.
This stuff.
And we've got an engine that can integrate different languages. It has been Japanese, it can be Chinese, it can be Korean, it can be whatever. So don't worry, the translation is not done by the team, and we're still working on the team.
Actually, now that we briefly talked about languages, it never comes up in the feedback snapshot, but I'm from Germany, Seb's from Germany, so is from France. we play the sim. I see some things that where I see the translation might not be exactly right. We're probably going to ask for your help soon, like maybe our user research team. Give us some feedback how good the translation is, because it needs to be good, and it's sometimes very technical. If you're not familiar with aircraft at all, the translators can get it wrong. So anyways, we're committed to making the translations also great, not just more of them. So expect something coming your way. So there's some plan to do an internal in the sim sort of a survey tool. It's not done. User research folks has been asking for this for a while, but that way we could a little bit more directly communicate with you, and I think it would be good for all kinds of things, but certainly also for languages. All right, the next thing, it's slow here maybe. Unlock FS archive files for premium. So I just saw this from X-Editor. If that's what you guys mean, I'm totally open to it. Like, so the only reason really why they're not unlocked is because we have to, Boeing will get very mad at us if this becomes basically a plane that is shared, if the 787 becomes a plane that is shared just freely, right? That's the problem. It's the DRM thing is there because these licensors want to get paid, and we need to have some system to not have this go out everywhere. If it's really just the flight model thing, I think we can probably do that. So that was a useful comment. Thank you for that. So we should just take this offline, because I don't see any real problem with that at all, right? It's really just as long as the DRM can stay in place, we're okay. But more to that. What do we have next? Taxiway issues, sign issues, not started. And I mean, I think we're getting a little bit down the weeds. World Update Brazil, yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah. Do you mind if I move to the bug snapshot?
To the next one, yes.
Great.
I'll spend the entire thing on the.
Yes, and if there's just any updates that we don't already know on this page.
Yeah, this one, I just want to say, I mean, we are paying a ton of attention to crashes, and we had a very healthy conversation about this just the other day, that we should, ideally we have a zero crash policy. Seb, I remember you saying that, and we're like, yes, exactly. And I think the amount, we get a bunch of telemetry back, how much crashes there really are. And it's gotten, from that data, it's gotten a lot better, but that doesn't mean that they're not super annoying when they happen. So just know that it's every day, it's really our top priority. The best, I think some of the best devs are working on this. Seb, do you want to, Seb or Martial, you want to?
Yeah, it's, so we're getting a lot of data, right? We're getting crash reports. We know exactly how many crashes there are, how often they occur, what they are. Currently, it's kind of interesting to say, because the stats are the best we've ever had since release. But that means that, but the problem is the number, right? That means that there's just a lot of people who will not have crashes. But that doesn't mean that some people will have crashes, which can be very annoying. And so we're starting to go, it's basically a question of going more and more down into the low frequency crashes, which is still a lot of numbers because there is a lot of users, right? There's so many users. A low frequency crash can be 100 occurrences. That just means that maybe 10 people can never play. And so we need to go down into the numbers. Some of the crashes are also not in our control. So we know why they're happening, but we can't do anything right now to fix them. And so we're waiting on solutions. And it's so, and sometimes crashes are very fast to fix. So generally these get fixed in a hotfix or whatever. But yeah, we're just changing our policy a little bit, our strategy, in terms of not just go by number and statistics, but start to look at maybe a crash is only happening on one person. And because the sim is crashing, that person is not playing again. So there's just one occurrence. And until we fix that crash, that person can play. And so we need to look at all the different, and there's a lot of data, right? It's just like every time someone crashes, we get a data point. And so there's just data coming in again and again. And so you need to just look at all this and sort it and triage it. But from the stats today, we are in the best place we've ever been, but it's still our number one focus to get better at this as much as we can.
So we already introduced the safe mode just after a crash. So people can just check if the crash comes from one of the content or not. And we also intend to improve also the feedbacks and how we're collecting the information from crashes. So I see that a lot of people are asking for for logs. We are thinking on that, and we should bring a new system soon.
Yeah, people can help because I think somewhere between maybe 10 or 20% of our crashes, we have information like some sort of dump attached, and it just says unknown, which means we're maybe crashing in some driver or somewhere, something, and we don't have any info. So yeah, I just read in the chat, right? I'm crashing because of some Bluetooth device. That's very interesting because if we have a step-by-step procedure to review the crash, then it's easy, right? Because we just do it. Oh, it's here. And we can fix it.
Yeah, so we can speak about this a little. Xbox is crashing a little bit less than PC. PC is mostly because, I don't know if you guys mentioned the number, but we had some inkling of how much of it was caused by some third-party add-on incompatibilities, and the number was high, which is why we did this pop-up now where it says, hey, you crashed, do this, and you're in a safe mode, because it's often related, right? What you have on your machine. Not everything is always updated perfectly from third parties, or some freeware. Like it's just the way it is, right? The Xbox has less of that, so it's also more stable that way. Okay, so I think we're going to go a little bit faster through this because I feel like we should have open Q&A, not just the list. So I wanted to say, somebody says we skipped AIG. No, that's just because it was 2 down when we stopped. Kai just wrote me an email yesterday. I will reply to it today. The discussion is ongoing, and so don't worry about it. We will engage. And on these things, Garmin, we've talked about. Working titles, working on it. Weather, we should probably talk about this. I think it's not clear to people what we're actually doing here in later this year, Sim Update 7. So whoever wants to take that one.
Oh, okay. So we're we're working in close relationship with Meteo Blue to improve the weather system. So most of the problem we've got is that sometimes the real-time weather and the Meteo doesn't blend very well. And the real-time weather system is never real time because you still have to collect the data to create your weather model and then to distribute this. And this process is taking a bit of time. So we're working with Meteo Blue to increase the frequencies of those updates. So those updates will be also taking account on more real-time data like Meteor. So on this, so we already did some improvements to have a better integration of Meteor, some of the values, but with the Sim Updates 7, we intend to have this new weather model coming from Meteo Blue, worked with Asobo to have a better integration of real-time data.
Yeah, because so when we look since release, right, we have improved. So there was a whole bunch of bugs like altitude and sometimes wind speed. So bugs have been fixed, and we seamlessly merged metadata with Meteo Blue data, but on the sim side, right? So on the sim currently, what you have out there is when you fly closer to an airport, you're gonna get meta, and when you fly away from an airport, you're gonna get Meteo Blue data. But yeah, there is an offset, right? Metadata comes from a different time, and then maybe a thunderstorm just passed by, and the meta says, hey, it's nice weather, but Meteo Blue says, hey, still thunderstorm, because it's just not the same time frame of data sources. So as Martial said, this is going to be changed in the way that Meteo Blue is gonna inject the metadata into their model. So it's going to be, we're not gonna have these meta bubbles around airports anymore. It's gonna be into the system, and the model is gonna take metadata into account. So it's still gonna be accurate at airports, but it's also gonna be a much better blend into the other data, basically. So it's gonna look a lot more accurate and natural.
I mean, I think weather, just to make it clear, why sometimes, I read it, people are like, hey, open up the weather system for others. Weather for us is a big deal, right? It is something we are heavily investing in. And we think with Meteo Blue, we have a great partner. This late this year, you will get that first update. We're planning on another one, which will be really awesome. When it happens, it'll be probably in 22. It could be as late as 23. But weather is one of those things. It's where planes live. It needs to be awesome. And we will get it. We will get it as good as you can get it. That is really the goal.
Mm-hmm.
On some of these things that I read in the chat, like some weather stations are missing, just put a ticket in the Zendesk. We actually read all this. I'm not aware of this particular one being missing that you mentioned.
Does it mean some meta are missing?
The weather station itself seems to be missing. Unlike, I think actually on the thing in the Pyrenees, that's what I read anyways. It's not like, so Zendesk know that we're looking at it and it actually goes into our bug database. It might not be a two-way street, but it goes straight into our system and gets triaged every morning. So please don't give up on it. It's an important tool.
Yeah, I think just a little break on what Jorg is saying. Feedback is very important, right?
Very important.
Sometimes, I mean, I'm using software every day. Sometimes you have your issue and it's bothering you and it feels like until your issue is fixed, nothing is changing, nothing is moving forward. But that's not the case, right? Since release, right, we counted 20,000 improvements to the sim. We have a product management tool and you can count how many did we do? 20,000. But there's, I don't know how many left, right? And so people just, the clearer they report it. So Zendesk, if there's an issue, the easier it is for us to understand the issue, the faster it gets tracked and fixed. And we're fixing so many things or improving or updating things all the time. And it's very helpful for us when in a forum or so people are trying to investigate the root cause, because the easier it is for us to, I mean, the quicker we understand what the issue is and can reproduce it, then, I mean, just the easier it gets fixed, right? But we're fixing a lot of stuff. And if something is bothering you, it's going to get fixed eventually. If there's a clear report and we can easily understand it, it's going to get fixed because we're fixing just so many things. But maybe it's just down the list, right? Maybe the person who's reading this didn't understand what happened. Or very often we just don't have the issue because maybe we're not doing it the right way. Maybe there's one information missing. Maybe it's only this place or only in winter. I don't know, something sometimes can happen. Like, I think we have had a lot more altitude bugs this summer because it was hot. But the bug has been there forever, right? But it wasn't as hot. And so now that the heat comes, you can see it on it. Oh yeah, okay, there's an issue now. I can see it. And so it's sometimes the information that is missing is unexpected, right? But as soon as we get the issue, it's very quick to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think
just about the
like, don't you think? Like, I mean, Jayne, how long?
Okay.
I'd like to move on to one more question before the Q&A.
Just about this weather station, it looks like people are being misled because the station we did is the Pic du Midi, the Bigorre, which is in Pyrenees. Mm-hmm. And the one that seems to be missing, but it's not part of the World Updates France and Benelux, it was Aiguille du Midi, which is next to the Mont Blanc.
But that's what the chat said. But I think it really is missing then in the Media Blue database. It could be, like, we need to see. They have 80-something thousand, as far as I know, meta points, but we just need to see. Like, again, some of these things might just be a bug.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a meta on the Pic du Midi.
That's.
Oh, you got us going. All right.
Moving on. I do have a question.
Because we love those two places.
Said
and I. Yeah.
Gotcha. This question is for you, Jorg. Since this is our first Q&A since Sim Update 5, the community is curious to hear our thoughts on what we learned from the successes and the failures of Sim Update 5. If you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I do. So I think Sim Update size was an awesome accomplishment in one way. And I remember how happy I was, and we all were when we saw the performance improvements. It was really awesome. And I think we made some mistakes. I think we underestimated that some of the improvements broke third-party plans, or the degree of which they would break third-party plans. So we caused some pain there. And then on top of that, we introduced a new LED system. That was a requirement. That was a bunch of work for people. And as they say, sometimes in our business that we're in, the Xbox SKU came in hot. So it wasn't like, we had months to sit on it. And so at some point you have to pick a day. That's unfortunately how this works. And so we could have probably tested some things. Well, we should have tested some things a lot more. So we've learned. We actually discuss it often, and we are painfully aware of what happened. The SDK team is painfully aware of what happened. When we discuss the future, we're like, hey, think about what happened. We can't do this again. So I would say that's the impact, right? I think the sim runs much better. and we did some things that are pretty drastic, right? It was, I think Seb even said it, I think we had branched like 7 months or so before. It was just this, it was almost a complete rewrite of certain areas of the game, and that I think that's just a ton. And testing that, typically it's hard enough to just test a product and ship it and be done with it. This one, we have ongoing sim updates, world updates, and on top of that, we shipped something else. It was just a lot. And we probably should have waited even longer. In retrospect, you can always say that, but I still, in net, I feel great how the sim has improved.
And I think you can say that, for example, one lesson, what are we changing, right? Well, look at how we're going to release DirectX 12. DirectX 12 is going to be, I think it's something which could break things because, well, it's a completely new renderer, and maybe, I mean, there's so many hardware issues on PC. So DirectX 12 is going to be optional, and so that if you want to try it and it doesn't work, yeah, well, you can still revert to DirectX 11, right? We're not going to roll out 12 like that and just crush it on everybody. And then maybe, I don't know, 2% of the machines it doesn't work. That would be an issue. And so this time it's going to be, for DirectX 12 on PC, it's going to be a step-by-step rollout. And then maybe at some point, once everybody has great experience on DirectX 12, we can remove 11, but it's going to be more gradual. That's maybe one of the things we're trying to do different the next time.
And is that a method you're considering
something else we've
for
learned.
updates?
I mean, so basically what's happened, very beginning, we had the concept of a world update and the sim update. And we said, hey, world update is about world stuff, sim update is about core sim issues and code. And, we probably struggled a little bit. And it's genuine that anytime we have a world update and you see a bunch of code fixes, it's because we are listening and we're trying to fix stuff. But what ends up happening is that we release essentially a patch to the sim or an update to the sim every 30 days. And when you think about that, that is creating a kind of a stress of how these things come in, how much time you have. Like, for example, I just saw again, somebody said, hey, can we have a longer beta? Can we have an opt-in for beta? And the answer is, yeah, we absolutely want to do this. But the thing that's happening right now is that every month we have code changes. Every month our test team jumps from branch to branch to branch. And it's just too much. So, and the original concept was that world updates are about world stuff, and sim updates are, so Martial and I made a pact that the next world update is not going to have any code in it. And what that means is we can have a much longer beta phase of the next sim update. We can sit on that for almost 2 months. That's what we want. That's when we can listen to you and we can actually iterate. That frequency has hurt us some, and that is our new approach to 2022.
That's great to hear. On that subject, a question here. There's a perceived inequity of bugs. Some get fixed very quickly when reported. Some's been around since launch. Do you have anything you're doing in order to kind of fix this balance of legacy bugs versus recent bugs that we get?
This is not coordinated yet between the three of us, but I would say what you end up getting is what we call bug debt. Like when you have a big release like Xbox, and that's one of the knock-on effects of doing a big release like Xbox, you actually end up getting conservative with bug fixing towards the end of that process. Because if you just keep pouring in changes, it'll never stabilize. I mean, it's just not how this works. So we artificially sort of curved down the bug fixing in the months leading up to Xbox, which then meant the overall bug count actually started growing. And I think I want to say it was Chris from Working Title who said, I really like that idea. He said, hey, why don't we focus Sim Update 8 on bug fixing? And you heard already Seb wants to do helicopter stuff, and that's awesome. And Seb should do Seb stuff. But I think having a Sim Update that is really focusing on fixing just bugs is healthy, is what we should do. And I talked to colleagues of mine in Rare. They make a game called Sea of Thieves. They had an update to Sea of Thieves. They were in the same state. They put content in and fixes this, that, or the other. But at some point they said, we're just going to fix stuff. Like an entire section of 2-3 months, all they did was fix. And that Sim Update was, or their update was by far the most appreciated by the community. So I seriously think that's the right way forward. We can probably halve our bug count if we really focus on it.
Yeah.
But that will mean some other stuff comes a little bit later. But I think when I listen to the thread, people are like, hey, it's crashing, this bug, this bug, this bug. Okay, so instead of just keep turning the feature crank, I think we should step back, fix the bugs, get it really focused again on stability, and really just lowering the bug count. And then I think you'll have something cleaner. And that I think is the right next step. And that would be sort of early 22. We would do that.
Yeah, thanks, Jorg. And if you can't tell, chat, we have already moved on now to the question and answer portion. So if you do have questions, go ahead and ask them in chat, and our mods will pick some good ones. But I do have some questions here from the forums. The first one being for Jorg. This is about marketplace stability. So the question is, when will the marketplace transaction system be more stable to prevent things like double charges, failed purchases, or products not showing up when people buy them?
I mean, so it's unfortunate. So I would just say we are growing the marketplace team all the time. I mean, it's and I saw some. So let me answer the other part first, and then I'll get back to the question. So there is a backlog right now. It's driving third-party developers crazy because they send us their creation and they want to publish it, and we have a little stack of that is fairly large. So we just decided to, I think, hire another 4 people to help with this, because it's not what we want. Like, what we want is people to bring their creations to everybody as soon as they possibly can. And that will also help, by the way, with updates, just to be clear. For us, an update to a plane, for example, an airport, is just the same amount of work, because we're testing it. We typically spend 3-4 hours at least to update, to check everything. And then on planes, obviously a lot longer. So in order to get the throughput and the delays reduced, we're hiring. That's and we had another dev joining our team on the Microsoft side. His name is Todd, really great dev, and he's going to help us with tooling, because the tooling is just not awesome. We frankly did not expect that much content. It's more than we thought, which is great and all, but you need to be able to obviously bring it to the customer, or potential customer. And then on the stability, I mean, there's very few bugs on our side. There are systems that we are plugged in on the Microsoft side. Those are Microsoft-wide systems. The good news is FlightSim is a super supported product inside Microsoft. I mean, that goes all the way to Satya. He loves the sim. He talks about it often. So when we say something is broken, they actually pay a lot of attention. But it is sort of a behemoth, it's a big thing you're trying to move. And so they and I'm sure it's complex, but I honestly don't know enough about it. So, Martial, you probably know more about this than I do.
Yeah, but you give us a pretty good description of what's happening. So I don't know what to add. Yeah, so we are also dependent on other systems, because as you can imagine, we've not decided to create like a new purchase system and like get in contact with banks, and it's too complicated. So we're using some other technologies, and we're working close with research to have this fixed.
Yeah, it's funny about the John Mayer. I saw that I actually sent Jimmy from Blue Mesh an email saying, "Did you see that?" John Mayer was flying the little boat. It was great. Anyways, sorry, goofing around. Back to the questions.
So one question I saw in chat about that, and not knowing exactly, how the back end tools of the marketplace works, would it ever be possible for, trusted third parties to be able to upload it themselves? Is that would that be a whole change?
I don't think so. So what we have is the developers we've approved, and obviously we've approved, I think I write that every week, it's 250 or something, and we have basically direct channels to them, and they send us their software. We then have to test it. We are also responsible for the appearance of that stuff in the marketplace, so that needs to be tested, the description text and the pictures and all that stuff. And so that's why it's not a self-service store like that. And but all I can say is, like, look, it's awesome that we have a third-party ecosystem. It's awesome. We will hire whatever it needs to take, whatever it takes to make that go well. It is, honestly, I think we're already 3 times more than we thought we'll be as far as content. And we just underestimated the power of the people, quite frankly. Like, yeah, people making lots of stuff, and it's up to us to make that better. The technical underpinnings bit is a little bit harder for us because, as I said, it's not directly under control, but the getting it published is ours, and we're going to fix that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next question I have could be for everyone. Is it says here, a lot of us flight simulator simmers could benefit from the dev team kind of reassuring us that they intend on making this a flight simulator, not just a pretty game. Mm-hmm. So do you have anything you'd want to say to that?
I read that thread, and
me too.
And it was I remember. Thank you for some of you putting the pictures up from the global preview event. That is what we meant and mean, and we haven't changed our minds one iota. Like, this is a sim for simmers. There's no question about it. Now, maybe there's an interpretation in there somewhere, because I think there's also people that want to become simmers and they're not quite there yet, and we shouldn't slap the door in their faces, right? As a matter of fact, I think it's good for the hobby to bring more people in and to be friendly to them and make it elegant, and that's why we have checklists and tooltips and all these other things that core simmers probably don't need at all, because they're like, what is all this stuff? I already know all that. Leave me alone. But newcomers don't, and it's from my perspective, it's been really, really great to see. Not just the, I think some people are like, the Xbox crowd. It's not just that. It's kids. It's kids playing, like lots of them. That's what we want, like fundamentally. And so I think being tolerant about all that, I think is important. Does that mean we're not going to do core sim stuff? No, like you heard working title, and Asobo was working on sim. The entire first part of the presentation was core sim. So we are absolutely determined to make this the best possible core sim it can be. Don't ever think we're confused here of what's important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now this question may be for Seb. Now that we have landed on Xbox, will Asobo focus on making this sim use all available PC power?
Well, so we're going step by step, because every time you change something, you need to test it on all machines and compat labs. And so, yeah, every update since the Xbox has had some improvement or graphical improvement. And so, like, as I announced and showed with the videos, for Simulate 6 is going to be the graphical slider going further. Trees are going to be pushed on further on LODs. Improved night lighting, which is a lot of load on the machines. And before we did also improvements. Martial is maybe going to talk a little bit more about VR, where we also improved things. I see a lot of anti-aliasing bugs coming by. So that's also, I mean, there is still bugs, but we think we fixed all the anti-aliasing bugs that were there, that have been introduced recently. I think it's back to where it was before. There is some anti-aliasing bugs which we can't fix because of the technology. I think it's when you get very close to some buildings, there's a little bit of pixel shimmer. But I think there was anti-aliasing bugs introduced with VR. These have been fixed. Some on some types of environment, I think they have been fixed. Also, if there's clear reports when it happens, we can maybe try to improve it further. But yeah, we keep pushing. I mean, we've gained a lot of memory and performance. So we keep pushing stuff further, right? And not just on the visual side, right? When I say we're gonna redo the propeller sim, the propeller is currently 1 point. It's gonna turn into thousands of points, right? So when we model the surfaces on the propeller, that's a lot more workload on the PC. Yeah, all this work of optimization was there to give frame rate, but also to open the possibilities to add more stuff and more detail. And when we do world updates, it's higher resolution data, higher resolution photogrammetry. It's getting more and more and more. So I think that's definitely what we're doing. And yeah, I think as much as we can, we're gonna push the sliders, the options up. And this time it was the terrain detail. We're gonna try push other stuff up, right? Maybe in the future, other stuff, right? Maybe other effects, depending on what is needed, what is lagging behind. We're gonna push stuff up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Can we go look at the VR thing? I think we
sure.
maybe we have promised it in the and we actually made some slides. No, I made the slides, but Martial wrote it all, so you can talk to it.
Sure, let's talk about
so you will see the slides very John.
My awesome looking.
Yeah.
1 second. I'll get to it. All right, here we go.
Oh, look at that.
All right, let's talk about VR.
Okay, so just about the next 2 sim updates. So with sim update 6, we spent a lot of time to read the feedback community, the community feedback, sorry, and bug fixes. So regarding community feedbacks, so these are the most important feedbacks we fixed, but there's some others obviously. So anti-aliasing has been fixed on menus. Same for the reflections. I know that was a regression that went with update 5. We also changed the shader code. This is partially fixed. There's a problem between inconsistency with the left and right eye. We also use 2D cockpits in VR. So this one I can't remember. I'm sorry about that. The wrong horizontal presentation. I just can't remember this one. I'm sorry. And also the dot cursor that was switching outside and inside the view. We also did some fixes regarding the inputs. So especially the mouse cursor when you were hovering the toolbar. We also found several crash to desktops. We try to improve as much as possible some blurry textures, some lighting, some low latency issues, and we already pushed some fixes in the World Update 6. So that was one part of the World Update 6 coming with code, and we are trying to improve this also, and it also depends on the hardware you're using. And Sim Update 7 should be dedicated to improvements, and especially on 6-dot controllers. We are going to support main 6-dot controllers that includes all Microsoft mixed reality controllers. Of course, the Oculus Touch, Valve Index, and HTC controllers. And it means that the player will be able to interact with everything in the cockpits, including instruments and in-game panels. So we've got 2 modes for that, what we call the proximity mode and the recourse mode, and obviously also the main menu. And we also want to collect a bunch of feedback with these 2 updates, because the Sim Update 8 is going to be a Sim Update 8 dedicated to the feedbacks and the fixes we are going to collect for VR once the controller is going to be published. And we also know that all the control inputs we will miss some of functionalities, and that will also come with Sim Update 8.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, next question I have, I've been seeing a lot in chat. People are asking about wind gusts. They mentioned that it used to work before Sim Update 4, I believe, and now nothing tends to happen when you change wind gusts in the custom weather settings. Seb, do you have an update on that?
So I think that's fixed for Sim Update 6. So yeah, wind gusts, I mean, that's the ones in the weather menu where you can add wind gusts to your weather. I think it's only in the presets. If you're in live weather, the wind is coming for every little cube on the planet from Meteo Blue, and whatever the weather you have, we still simulate the impact of mountains, of terrain, forests, everything. So you should still get updraft, downdraft. But for this to happen, you need to have some wind, right? If it's also for people who are lacking turbulence, try in the weather, try 35 degrees Celsius versus 0. You're going to see there's a big difference. But that's how it works in the real world. If you fly in cold temperatures, you don't get as much. Try sunny weather with 35. Fly low, it's going to be a lot more shakier. But yeah, the weather menu slider thing, I think, was completely inconsistent. I mean, sometimes it worked, but I had a lot of issues. That has been fixed. If there's any other issue, just make a report, specific case, what's not working. I mean, I fly 6 hours a day. For the rest, it's mostly working. So I haven't seen anything, broken turbulences or whatever. But yeah, you need to think that Meteoblue is also sending us wind data, and if they send a super calm air, we're not going to add gusts on top, right? So it's also depending on the data we get. But yeah, please report any remaining issues. I also think with the updated weather in SummerBlade 7, we're going to get a lot more density of weather data. So I think that's also going to improve the gusting in real life weather.
Yeah, great. Thank you. This question is for Jorg, I believe. Are we working on an opt-in beta branch like what some other sims have?
It's a question for all of us. This is something we want. I think it's a structure. It's a setup issue. I mean, actually, I know you guys. We talked about it, like with Laurent. I think Seb, you also said, yeah, we should have an opt-in. So, but I don't know. So it's a question of when. Do we want to? Yes. I mean, we have this flighting system. It's actually quite nice, but the way we're doing it right now is, I think there's two things, right? I think there's basically keep different versions of the sim around so you don't have to update. And then there's the other one, which is a longer beta. And that's, to me, they're both related.
Yes. And we also have an issue with the packages compatibility, because in the same time we are changing the executable, we are also changing the packages. So it would mean that every time we are doing a new version, that we've got to create the packages that comes with it when they got updated. And it was another layer of difficulty for the team. So we thought it was better to be a bit more secure to start with. But we want to improve the process of publishing build and make this opt-in option available. I won't give you any promises, but the team is working on that to have the structure and the organization in order to be able to do so.
Yeah, this is what we want. It'll come in 2022 sometime. It's just not, we need to be careful not to break something, but
yeah,
the intent
it's also, for us, it means ramping up and doubling basically anything related to release. Because let's say you have let's say SimUpdate 7 is optional for a few weeks or months, whatever. So that means we have 6 and 7 out, and we need to be able to hotfix both, right? Because Sim could break all of a sudden, and then 7 could break all of a sudden. And so you need to have a double release team just to be able to maintain both for as long as they're out. And it's and the same for data. Data may sometimes when we update the sim, we also update the data on the servers, and so it may mean we have to double servers, right? Because the 6 still needs to have the old data, and 7 needs to have the new data.
And the server side is also super important because we are also updating the server at the same time. So it means that we will have to double at least, or I don't know if you want to keep three versions to the amount of servers that are running. It means also like to double or to triple the monitoring on those, the alert systems. So it's not that obvious, but it's definitely something we want to work on. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a question that's sort of related. The number of people in the beta or like opt-in branch or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, I don't remember even. Maybe it was processing of feedback why we limited the number, but having listened to dozens, if not hundreds, of third-party developers, I can guarantee you every third-party developer will have access to the beta, and I think that's a must-do. You don't need to be just a developer. Like I think we're going to widen this. I think it's going to put some strain on our can we process all the feedback we'll be getting. That's actually kind of on the other side of that equation, but more feedback is better at this point in time. We all want this to be more stable. None of us feel great when we have a hot fix, trust me. Like we would like to have a clean release. There's just so much to test. As you know, sims are super complicated and it's very difficult. Like so I said, the monthly thing, testing everything in a month is practically impossible. So extending the time will help. Getting more people in will help.
So I've seen a comment regarding servers. I'm not telling that we can't double the number of servers. It's the amount of time that's needed to do the monitoring, to do the updates if needed, and it's not like clicking on Azure and duplicate the server there.
To upload giga and giga and giga of data.
No. So
Yeah,
it's not the infrastructure. The hardware is not the problem. It's the people behind the software on the hardware.
Yeah, but I also think like while we have, you know, frankly, millions of people playing the sim, I think it's you guys here, the core, that will really help us the most. And I don't really see any reason to restrict that. There won't be 1 million people coming to a beta because that would be overwhelming. Like we really couldn't process this, right? But what if it's like the 5,000? That should be okay. So far we kept it at a few hundred. So we want your help. Like trust me.
Yeah. A great question. Will Xbox players ever be able to download or import flight plans from the internet?
I think the answer is maybe. So I know that there's some, because we talked about it in the context of other things, that there's external sources. So actually, you know, Xboxes are sandboxed and they are fully protected because you don't want to jailbreak a console. Microsoft will get very mad if we jailbreak the console via Flight Sim, and it's typically not allowed. But there is some, I know that some of our devs have looked into this, and there is some ways to do certain things, but we just need to be careful, and we need to actually get this approved by the platform team, quite frankly. So, you know.
Great, thank you. Will there be DLSS 2.1 support released in the near future? It says here 80% of performance impact is resolution, especially in VR mode. We can't use VR headsets with high resolutions at 100% scale like HP Reverb G2.
That's why we have a TLLA render scale already. We looked at DLSS, and there's a lot of DLSS demos, and what we found is that for a terrain seen from a plane, which is pretty chaotic with a lot of forests, DLSS is maybe not the best way to up-res. It may work in a city, in a first-person shooter world, easy, but from a plane, the benefit of DLSS compared to just upscaling with a temporally, because the world doesn't almost move, right? When you're flying from up there, you're looking down, it's just very slowly traveling by. So temporal upscaling versus DLSS, well, temporal upscaling is going to provide the correct data. DLSS is not. I don't say we're never going to do it, but it's currently it costs a lot of investment in terms of dev time, and the benefit is low. So we are just moving this out because we just have so many other things to look at. But it's going to come at some point. We need DirectX 12 to work well first. Once DirectX 12 is out there, bugs are going to be fixed first, right? Because it needs to work well. And once we can free up render resources, maybe dropping DirectX 11 at some point, then we'll have time to do stuff like DLSS and other. I mean, DirectX 12 brings a lot of great features, and once we free up time, but we need to step onto DirectX 12 for us first. That's going to eat up a lot of our render team and platform team.
Hey, Seb, can you, like, so it came up a bunch of times here, like from different folks, the anti-aliasing. I think there's a perception that it's broken. But
I think there was a few problems on just the general world, which got fixed quite quickly on the sim update. Then there was a few issues in menu, which got fixed. And now I think we have mostly issues in either VR or specific settings. I mean, I just signaled an issue where I had anti-aliasing issue when I was at render scale 50, which got improved. It really depends on, there was some render anti-aliasing issue with the nights, which I think is also going to get improved with a Simulate 6. It's different things, right? It's somewhere, some setup, some resolution, and there was issues which I reported also, but they were just there before, and there was a reason. That's just, yeah, we can't do this yet with the system we have. at some point, maybe we'll improve it, right? But I think mostly VR now remaining and should be fixed also. But then, I mean, if someone is, the problem is this is not very visible on a screenshot because it's shimmering. And it's not very visible on a video because if you upload a video, usually it's encoded and compressed, and you don't really see it either. So it's a little bit more difficult to track. Whereas a visual bug with a screenshot, you say, oh yeah, okay, that's the issue. Shimmering, even sometimes I have something on my screen and I have to call basically pretty much people to my PC so that they actually see it as, oh yes, okay, now I see what you mean. Because it's not so easy to report. But yeah, we're actively looking at it. I mean, just this week again, we looked at anti-aliasing.
Thank you. What's going on with Charts Plus, Martial?
Oh, not much. Yes, it has been a bit unprioritized. So we've got to bring it back to our schedule, but yeah, to be honest, it's a conversation we need to have with our providers, and to bring that, we know we've got some plan, and especially for VR, because if you're using VR, for instance, and it's not like you can have like an external service for displaying any flight information. So we would like to bring in VR a kind of window or a virtual pad on which you can put your information there. So we intend to bring that to the sim, but it has been unprioritized because of everything we were talking about during the stream. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question I have from chat. There's a bug that's been logged about planes disappearing in multiplayer mode. Wondering if you have an update on that, and or if you want to speak about any multiplayer improvements in general.
So we changed a bit the behavior of plane being closed because of Reno. Because in Reno we need to see exactly where the other planes are. I'm not sure we are talking about the same thing here, but if it says the behavior of planes disappearing because you're very next to it, then it's going to be improved thanks to the Reno mode.
Yeah, it should get better. Uh-oh, we're losing Martial again.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
no.
on multiplayer, it used to be just plane-to-plane distance. And with Reno, we detected actually it's like wing and everything, so you can get a lot closer. We will still have to, I mean, we can't have planes clip into planes. We can't crash planes because of just licensing issues. So at some point, and you don't want to have a crash, right? So at some point, we're going to have to disappear it, but it's going to be a lot later. So, I mean, so close that you wouldn't want to do this in real life anyway. But because we now do better plane-to-plane calculation.
Gotcha. Yeah, so those are like two different things we were talking about. Ghosting, which will be improved, but there is a current bug, I think I did see it earlier, about sometimes you're just playing in multiplayer mode and planes around you just kind of disappear for a little while and then they come back into view.
I see a question popping 5 times now, and it's a question which has also been brought up by plane makers with who we work very closely. The way the tire friction is working on ground. So there's going to be, so it's basically the system is still a hack of FSX, and there's limitations to it. We can't do exactly all the things we want, but we improved it significantly for Simulate 6, so that now when you're rolling during takeoff or taxiing, whatever, if there's crosswind, P factor, I don't know, prop wash and rudder input, anything that would make the plane yaw, it has a lot more impact now. The issue is that the collisions, it's constraint solving, and the wheel is supposed to be like, it's on the ground, it's supposed to be sticky, it can roll, but it cannot turn like this because it's sticky. And there needs to be a little bit of making it unsticky, which is basically requires a change in the system. So we tuned that down, and I tested a few planes, especially tail draggers, it's now like basically when you rotate, the transition doesn't, like, you're not going from the sticky to, oh, now I'm going into the wind anymore, because it happens way before while you're rolling. Basically, it integrates the fact that when a tire is not rolling, it can't really turn easily as much. That's why you have assisted steering wheels on cars. But when you're rolling, it gets easier and easier. And after a while, the wind just pushes you into the wind. So for the takeoff, crosswind experience, or landing, it's going to be a lot improved on Simulate 6. But then later, I think next year, we're going to just rework this entirely. And it's going to get another step up. But currently, I think it's good enough to at least get that what people wanted is this. I have to put the rudder when I'm taking off. And when I rotate, I don't get this shift, right? Where it's all of a sudden seems like it changes engine or something.
Yeah.
Changes formula. This is now very seamless.
Great. Thanks, Seb. Question in the forums. It seems that VFR flying has gotten a lot of the main focus up right until now. Will IFR get more focus in the future for IFR accuracy and simmers who like to fly in IFR?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what Matt was talking about earlier quite a bit. I mean, that honestly, working title is a blessing, right? Those guys are great. I think you all agree. I have total faith that they will help us a lot. So yes, we are yeah. It's maybe perceived that way, that we focused on VFR. I mean, it's true that I remember when we first started talking about making a sim, most people said, hey, we need VFR to be awesome. But I think, they didn't mean like IFR not so good. So it's clearly on our roadmap. As I said, working title is going to staff up to make this even faster. So don't worry about it. But yes, I know maybe it sounds lame. Give us some time. But we're gonna go fix it.
Yeah, and if we consider the word IFR on a wider scale, right? Okay, what is IFR? It can also mean flying in the clouds. So I just read through the changelog of Simulate 6. Simulate 6 also fixes the cloud drag. The cloud were too draggy because there was a mistake in the volumic mass of water in the clouds. It was too big. I think maybe there was a shift by 10 or something, a 0, and the clouds were too heavy, and so you were dragging too much into the clouds. This has been fixed with Simulate 6. If you consider IFR being flying with an airliner very high, well, all the work we're trying, all the visual improvements lately have been focused at airliner altitudes to make it look better, and all the weather improvements we're trying to make. There's been the altitude changes. It's even on the wider scale. Most of our work is for planes or IFR flight situations. GA is really very little of our effort right now. Like if you look at the Airbus, where the flaps can change all the different CM. Now, flaps have added so much control for third-party and plane makers that we're also going to use to control drag, lift, CM, and slats and flaps. All this has been fixed earlier this year and is being rolled out on the planes just to make the different configurations better. So yeah, talking wider, not just navigation and instrument flying. Everything that comes with AFR is also our focus.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry. Well, so maybe we can also, because we're talking about clouds, have a word about the visibility, because I've seen some threads about visibility, and we're working on that, especially with the new weather systems that comes with the blend of meteo information into our real-time weather. It's a tricky part, honestly, to turn a value of visibility into our systems, because the visibility can be because of many factors. It could be like humidity, clouds, which is a bit the same, but also particles in the air. So we're working on that to turn the RVR data into our cloud system or weather system. We don't want to add like a layer of fog like you could get in those old games and just like set up the visibility and it creates like a fake fog. But it's a tricky part, and we've got some people working on that to have a better setting, better rules for RVR.
So many questions.
I know. Trying to get to all of them. A really quick one that should be easy to answer. Well, will the flight model and other improvements from Reno be available to all players or only those with the Reno pack?
So we're doing, it will be the same executable. So every improvement will benefit to everybody. But obviously when you will get the Reno races, the game mode and the planes will be only delivered to one who gets the Reno pack. But the executable, the improvements, it will be shared
we have only one flight model, so
don't ever want to shard the audience with an update. That's just not okay.
So the content will be different, but the theme will be the same for all users.
Yeah. All right. A question about getting third-party mods on the Xbox. Is there? They're just wondering why there's not many there yet. Is there plans to bring more and more each week, or how's that work?
Mods, or you mean add-ons?
Add-ons.
So if you look at our updates right now, we are prioritizing fixes. So if there's something, because the logic is if somebody bought something and the developer wants to fix it, we actually try to get the fix out first. And then we look at what else is in the pipeline. And right now, some developers have already, they do the work, want to come over to Xbox. And when they're ready, they let us know, and then we test it. And then I think last week we had, 1 new release on PC and 10 on Xbox, and something like 22 updates. That's kind of the ratio right now. Doesn't always have to be like this, but as I said, we actually just went through the math. We have to increase our pipeline to at least have 50 releases a week in order to sort of whittle down the stack that we have in front of us right now. And it really just comes down which developer wants to go on Xbox. It's totally opt-in. There's some amount of work for some of them. So if they want to come, then we will process it and make sure it happens. But as far as I know, there's 100 and something. I think there's 500 something in the PC store, 100 something on the Xbox store, and that just launched 30 days ago. So it's just imagine there's like 50 things coming in every week, and there will be some distribution between Xbox and PC. I think Xbox will catch up, but it's just a matter of time. And sometimes the devs want time, right? Like I think it's one of the things that Hans is working on the CRJ. I know, like that the Xbox version is something he wants, and it's not quite done. So, but it's up to the developers, really.
Okay, great. In multiplayer mode, you can see, I think, usually up to 50 or so planes. Will there ever be a way to increase that and or prioritize people on your friends list as far as planes that you can see?
We are thinking about that too, but for the moment we've got some constraints because the sort is also been done server side. So we've got to if you in order not to gather or to collect too many people, we've got to do some splits on the server. So we are thinking about getting more information client side.
Oh, I guess to add to that from Peter, include the group size, increase the group size.
Well, or streamed is the other thing, right? Like, so I think there was a bunch of questions. Hey, what about the traffic planes? And trust me, we built a bunch. I can't wait to actually get them launched. And then same with liveries. We actually have a fair amount. Like I've been, I always said, I'm going to go try to get a license for every livery on the planet. We'll see. But it's all memory, right? So it's at some point we need to go make sure that we can afford all that. And there's other methods that I think we've been discussing to get the data streamed.
Yeah. Question for Jorg. Long term, what is your vision for Microsoft Flight Simulator for 2022 and beyond? Do you see new content like Top Guns and support continuing for the long term 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, maybe I should. This might be controversial. I think flying is fun. So I think there's also modes that are sometimes just fun modes. Like, but it was interesting because there was some thread of like, why do you guys work on Reno Air Race? And Reno Air Race, I think many of you know, there was this thing called acceleration, was the first add-on to Microsoft, to FSX. And it was really liked that back in the day, and it had the Reno race. And so we talked to the Reno folks like 2+ years ago about, and then the show got canceled last year. I don't know if you follow it, but like, so it was sort of, this is awesome. It's really a great event that celebrates aviation, specifically also the history of aviation. It's really cool. And it feels like the right thing. Now, you know, and Top Gun, I mean, I honestly think this is a dream come true. If you would have asked me, hey, you work on Flight Simulator and you get to work on Top Gun, I would have said, you know, that thing was like 25 years ago or 30 years ago, whenever it was. I had no idea that would be a movie. And it was just a fortuitous thing, right? Like, hey, we can work on Top Gun, holy shit. So I think there's opportunities that we should take sort of with a light heart. And I think of like, look, I think mostly core simmers here. I have no idea how many of you want to really play the Reno race. We played it and it's fun. But I think the only reason why this is really a topic is because the sim has some things that are not done, or like things that need to be improved. And then people are like, hey, stop putting resources on things that are not critical. And I think finding the right balance is the key here, right? And I think when you think of the team, like I said before, like we're growing the Asobo team, we're growing the working title team, we're growing the Microsoft team, we added other partners. I want to say we are now 50 bigger than we were at launch, all up. And that allows you to do certain things. And I think we should have fun with things that airplanes do, you know, and some airplanes are in air races. Why not? That's cool. And I think the vision is, if I have anything that I sort of in my heart, and when talk to David, the creative director of Asobo, it's the sort of the real pilot's life, the aviator's life is something that we should embrace, but authentically. Like, it's not make some game modes, like that's not really what we're after here at all, right? But if you look at those pilots that fly around in Reno, they do that. It's one of their highlights of their year. They love it. So there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it doesn't become the dominant thing and all we have is air races or something. So I think there's more to be done outside of the very core sim, just functionality things that clearly need attention. But beyond that, I think we can do more with embracing the life of an aviator.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks, Jorg. One question about the team that we had working on Xbox. They want to know, have they been moved to different aspects of the sim now that Xbox is released?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As Jorg said, the size of the team has not come down. It's more the opposite. And so people are asking for DirectX 12 and some other features. It's the same team, so they already did some DirectX 12 code for Xbox, so they are going to port that to PC.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, just an example.
Cool. Thank you so much. There's a couple more bug-related questions here. I'm not sure if the three of you would have any insight into it. One is about the avionics screens turning black after a longer flight. Do we have any update on that?
I haven't even heard about it. So I saw it multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of it.
So I mean, maybe related, maybe unrelated. Support asked me this morning, why is the battery emptying on some planes? Asked, did you turn on the alternator? He didn't know. I don't know. We need to investigate, but something is turning them off, definitely. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, there was also a comment about frame rate drops on long distance flights, which I'm like, this is still happening? I thought we had that. But this is why, so I like the great thing about this, by the way, compliments to your staying power that all of you, as you stayed here, thank you. One of the things that actually really frustrates me, and Jayne knows this, is like there's so much good content and feedback in this stream, and I can't ever get to this text, and it's driving me a little bit crazy. So I actually rewatch it and sort of try to see everybody. It's not the best way to go. But please, if you have something like this, I can just say, like, in all honesty, like the Zendesk is the way to make us aware of things. And we have a team that brings Zendesk bugs to our triage every morning. So I have not heard that. And frankly, the same with that Xbox mouse drag that somebody's talking about. I have not seen that either. It works fine on mine. And but it's not. You're clearly right. There is something. But I have not seen it.
Yes, yeah, I can confirm that it's definitely logged. And
well, we should just go out. That's why I said let's spend a full-on milestone just fixing bugs. Trust me, it's going to make us all happier.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it is a little past 12:30 Pacific time, so I think that's about all the questions we can answer. We will get this stream up on YouTube later today with it'll also include closed captioning. But I appreciate everyone asking all the questions. Of course, there's a lot we still haven't gotten to, but we will continue to try to answer those questions in the forum as well, especially some relating to bugs. The community team always try to provide some updates if we can on very specific bugs, so you can see us. We talk there in the forums. But does anyone have anything last minute they want to say before we shut down the stream?
I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, getting lots of thank yous from chat too. Chat, thanks for bearing with us for this 2-hour stream. We appreciate it. We already have the next step Q&As mapped out as far as dates. So we will have one each month, October, November. You'll get them. Don't worry. And we're excited to talk to you again. Really appreciate you continuing to provide us feedback on the sim. And we hope you have a great week. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Till soon.